Hey everyone, my name is Marcus. I work as developer relations with Edge and Node, and welcome to another episode of the Graph Builders Office Hours. We have EthDenver winners, Perpetual Organization Architect here, and their team, named Perpetual Organization Architect, built an incredible subgraph and was really able to stand head and shoulders above the competition. So I thought it was best to invite them on. We have Emma Nasseri. That I was close. What was that?
That worked, yeah.
That worked. Okay, Nasseri. There we go. And we've got Hudson Headley here, and they won the best new subgraph. So before I hand it over to them and they're able to share their workshop, I just want to go over a quick announcement. Right now is an upgrade window that's going on in the Graph protocol ecosystem. And what that means is if there's any hosted subgraphs that we have a window between now and June 12th to upgrade those subgraphs to the Graph network. So what I'll do is I'm going to drop this in the chat for anyone here who is using a hosted service subgraph or knows someone who is using a hosted service subgraph. Go ahead and send this video around. There's also docs. This is important because at June 12th, the hosted service endpoints will be deprecated. So we're moving those hosted service subgraphs over to the Graph network, and there's a lot of good benefits of going to the Graph network. Feel free to watch that video, read the docs, and get into it like so. And also, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help with that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and pass the microphone over to these two amazing builders, and I'll just let you guys take it over with this workshop. And if you guys want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little about yourselves before we get going, that would be awesome too. All right, let's get going, guys.
Okay, so for a quick intro, I'm Hudson. I'm currently finishing up my undergrad at the University of Kansas, studying computer science and economics. I've been really interested in DAOs for years now, and I feel like a lot of my college journey has been working towards being able to develop something like this. And so I'm excited that I was finally able to do it. I learned about the Graph a long time ago, and ever since then, like that was kind of what felt like the missing component in blockchain for like full decentralization that just made things like really click for me. And so I'm glad that I was able to implement something so cool for EthDenver.
I can give a quick intro too. Thanks, Hudson. And thank you so much again, Marcus and the Graph team for having us here. I'm Emma. I'm also finishing my degree at University of Kansas. I'm studying computer science and visual arts. I've been a supporting developer on this project since EthDenver, primarily working on the front end. And now that we're starting to really grow the community, I'll be helping steward that as well. I've been a huge supporter of this idea since the beginning. I think Hudson and I started having conversations about kind of the ideas behind POA really like 2 years ago. So it's been in the works for a while. The concept has. It's been a really incredible journey just to see how Hudson's led POA's growth from an idea into a single DAO to a DAO builder and where we are now. There's a lot ahead, so I'm just kind of excited about the future and on board to support POA however I can.
Yeah. So for kind of like a brief overview of what POA is, the idea is to make a no-code DAO builder that has a wide range of flexibility and tools, and have that be not overwhelming for the non-technical users. So there's going to be an AI chatbot that walks you through the feature selection process and will give you suggestions on what type of governance models and other systems you should have for your particular organization's needs. Right now, this is kind of geared towards specifically student groups because that's where the inspiration came from. And yeah, so I'll let Emma talk a little more about kind of the inspiration behind that.
Definitely, yeah. So just kind of from a development story standpoint, this started really with our student organization that Hudson and I have been a part of called KU Blockchain at University of Kansas. So started with building out a DAO there, and we wanted to build something really custom for our student organization that kind of brings in a lot of really cool Web3 technologies into kind of its own native platform. So Hudson has led the development of that, our K blockchain DAO, and then we started to see a lot of interest in it from other student organizations, totally unrelated to blockchain and unfamiliar with Web3. And then kind of in conversations we were having elsewhere, it became pretty clear that there were a lot of people that we knew who didn't really know anything about blockchain or Web3, but were really interested in using tools like this to help organize their own communities, whether that was another student organization or even a family managing household chores, or had some interest also from friends we know kind of in open source communities. And kind of all this interest was coming from the point of, as long as they didn't have to code and they didn't have to do a bunch of Web3 stuff, and the platform had a lot of flexibility for customization, that was like something that was really interesting to them. So that kind of brings us to POA today, and I think Hudson's gonna walk through a little demo in a bit, and we'll show off more of the actual functionality of where it is now.
So first, just kind of a few of our key features with our voting system is there's kind of 3 different voting types that can be used. And this is something that sets POA apart from other traditional DAO builders, is we don't have tokens that you buy for voting. The voting is either direct democracy, participation-based, or a combination of the two, where you can weight direct democracy and participation within the same vote. And before I get into the demo, I'm just going to kind of quickly go over how we use the graph, and then I'll do a quick little demo just to get a better idea when I go into the code of how things work and what they're actually doing. So kind of the reason we chose the graph and have really enjoyed using it, I kind of hinted at earlier, but it fits our ethos of fully decentralized. Like, we want end-to-end every system to be decentralized, so that when someone deploys their Perpetual organization, it can't be stopped by anyone but the community vote itself. We still have a long way to go for that, but subgraphs is a very important component of that, of supplying the data to the front end. Specifically, since we're deploying smart contracts for users, we use a template pattern, which allows the tracking of the deployments without like knowing their address beforehand. And then we started to begin implementing the IPFS file data sources. And so, yeah, that's what I'll be showing off today. So this is just kind of our landing page right now. Takes you to this, which is where you'll get to see where your Perpetual organizations are. We have like our little about page here. You can all check this out live if you want to go to this site. But yeah, so I'll get into the architect itself. So we haven't fully fleshed out the AI integration yet. So what you're seeing right now is all hard-coded, and it's more kind of for a demo purpose. It doesn't even allow the users right now to select all the features we have available. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through this. So I'll just call this organization like Treehouse or something like that. The description doesn't really matter now. So here is, you'll be able to select different role types and different permissions they have. Right now, I'm just going to keep the default roles. Here, each organization automatically comes with direct democracy, which you can use for community polling just to gauge interest, or you could have like the direct democracy control your votes. But right now, we're going to select participation, and we're going to enable quadratic voting. We're not going to upload a logo. My MetaMask wallet's already connected. And so now when I confirm, it starts a transaction at the master deploy contract that's going to deploy the, like, I think 9 or 10 different contracts associated with the DAO. And then we'll kind of get into the front end of what the Perpetual organization itself looks like once this finishes deploying. All right, great. So here you'll be greeted with the join page. It's pretty simple for now. There's the 2 transactions that meant your membership NFT and then your direct democracy tokens for joining. This might take a second. Let's see if I can speed it up here. Yeah, so after this, I'll just kind of show off the different features of the DAO so you can kind of get a sense for how things work, and then the smart contracts and everything will make more sense. All right, so yeah, now that I've finished the joining process, if I refresh, my username pops up here, which I've already set previously, but if you go to join an organization for the first time, you would be prompted to put in your username. And so some things to show off is this is one of our main features, which is a task manager, which allows executives to make tasks and then review tasks, and then that automatically pays out in the token. So for example, create a little project here. So whenever we're doing this, events are being emitted from the smart contract, and our subgraph is set up to index those properly. So whenever this transaction finishes, I'll be able to show you that here. Cool. So I'll just make a little task here so I can kind of show off some of the voting features in a little bit. Again, we wanted to keep everything on chain just so it there is no compromise on decentralization, and that once it's deployed, no one can mess around with it, and it limits the potential for exploitation of like people minting participation tokens or being able to game that system in some way. So now here it refreshes. Yeah, so this pops up, and the nice thing now that it's here is since the transactions go sequentially, I can kind of just rush through this process, but it's you claim, you submit your submission, which might be like a link to your GitHub commit or whatever you're doing, and then the executive would review it here, and then once they complete the review, it should mint the tokens to them. And so in a second or so, we'll be able to go back to the account page and see that the tokens are minted. Once this completes. All right, cool. So yeah, now if we go back here, the tokens earned should be 9 because that was just kind of the default amount. On the leaderboard, it populates 2, and then for voting, if we go to our hybrid voting, which is if you remember the participation voting with quadratic voting, I do a little test proposal here. Then once this submits, and then once I vote, then we'll be able to see that it actually properly handles the votes and the quadratic voting all goes smoothly. So something like this is what we've been using for our DAO for our student university group. And this has been really good in kind of increasing participation because there's not too much incentive outside of being on the executive team to to like put in good work for a club, because you can't really show it off. But here you'll be able to verify all the work you did for a student group and show it off either through the leaderboard or however way you see fit. So here, if I vote yes, take a second, and then, so I'm voting with the participation token here, which I have 9 of, but since we're doing quadratic voting, the voting total should end up being 3. Yep. All right. So that's just a quick little demo to kind of show off our feature set. Now we'll kind of go into the code itself and how we're using all the subgraphs and smart contracts. So yeah, here we have our schema. So for example, for the direct democracy token that's deployed, this is the token itself, which has all the information associated with it. This is the mint event that's associated with the token, the direct democracy token factory. that listens to see whenever a token is emitted. And so basically how this works is each token object is created through the subgraph. Each voting object, treasury object, etc. is created, and then it all gets linked into this perpetual organization entity where each ID is the unique perpetual organization's name. And so if you have the name of a perpetual organization, you'd be able to get all this information about it through simple GraphQL queries. So for example, if you wanted to figure out what users were in it, it would be pretty easy because the users are all linked properly, and it has all their information from how much participation tokens do they have, to what tasks do they have claimed, to what different participation votes they've participated in, or direct democracy votes. And then this account entity is kind of holds kind of all your different user instances in the different perpetual organizations you've joined. So you'll have your one username. Mine was Hudson HRH, for example. And then it would have multiple different users associated with it of the different perpetual organizations I've joined. And so here I'll kind of show you a brief example of how the template pattern works. So here is the factory mapping for the hybrid voting. So how this works is you implement the hybrid voting as the voting template here, and you generate this by properly putting it in your subgraph YAML under the template section here. See where that is exactly. Okay, yeah. So this is where the voting factory itself is declared, and so you do specify the contract address for the voting factory because that won't change after the factories are deployed. But then here is the template, and so notice I don't have to specify a contract address here because it's set up to dynamically get the contract address whenever a new hybrid voting system is deployed. And so here I just define the entities, the ABI, and the different events. And if I go back to the factory, so the voting template of hybrid voting is populated in here with this new voting entity. It also sets some of the information for the perpetual organization, linking the hybrid voting to the specific perpetual organization that's created on chain. And yeah, so this sets this all up. And then this is the mapping file for those new deployed hybrid voting templates. And it can do things like handle the new proposal creation, which just listens for the new proposal event. And yeah, it handles all that voting here. And so you have a better idea. I'll kind of show how the smart contract works itself. So the main events are a new proposal being created, someone voted in the proposal, a winner's announced when the poll's completed, and kind of the poll option names. And so here, for example, when someone creates a proposal, it just makes sure to, based off all the parameters that are taken in, it emits everything properly, including, the proposal ID, the name, description, and then whether or not this is going to be a proposal that can trigger the transfer of funds out of the treasury, who would be the recipient of those treasury funds, the transfer amount. And yeah, so that's all handled here. It's emitted through this poll option and emitted through this new proposal here, which then the graph listens for and indexes properly. And yeah, and so now I'll kind of show a little bit of how we use this actually in the front end, and like use the queries themselves. Where is it? Okay. Yeah, so the code's a little messy because it was a hackathon project. I was just trying to get things done. But for example, we have our subgraph URL here, and then we just have all these queries declared that can help fetch stuff easily. So example, this one fetches plain tasks for a user. So it just takes in, all it needs is the user's wallet address or ID here and the organization name. And then you query to get the task information by just putting in a query like this. So what this is set up to do is searching for a user where their ID equals this, and then it's returning again their ID, and then the task where completed is false. So this is only tasks that are currently in progress that you've claimed, and it has data such as the IPFS hash, the payout, and then we pass this data to other areas in our front end to be able to display it properly. And this makes things really easy for us to fetch data overall. And yeah, it's not super optimized yet, just because, again, it was just a hackathon project, so we're trying to get things to work properly still. But yeah, that's the basics there. And now I'll kind of show you what we started for our implementation of the IPFS handling. So that's actually done in, I think it's in this registry mapping here. So if I make a little more room here, that's this one actually. So basically how this works is we define the context of the data source here, and this is when a perpetual organization is kind of in the last stages of its deployment. When the registry contract's being deployed, that kind of just lists all the information about the perpetual organization and all the contracts associated with it in one place. This is going to be used to be able to upgrade the perpetual organizations in the future after they're deployed. And so here we load the perpetual organization that's already been deployed, and we're setting things like just the registry itself. And then here I'm setting the context, setting up the context to pass in specifically the perpetual organization name to this handle IPFS function down here, and also setting the hash itself so it can be passed in the same way. And then this here is actually what fetches the IPFS content itself, and then we'll pass it back into that context. And since on-chain, the hash itself is being emitted and it's not the URL with the hash, we can do this directly without just getting the hash itself. And so then that's passed here to this handle IPFS content function, and it gets the context, gets the PO, the perpetual organization name, and the IPFS content. And right now it just saves it as a new IPFS content entity. I haven't set up the linking to the perpetual organizations yet. And it's also right now a JSON file that I haven't made it so it parses it properly. But eventually this is going to be used for things like setting the logo URL of your deployed perpetual organization and the description and any other information that would be too large to store easily and efficiently on chain. And so I mean, I guess that's basically it. The thing I'm most proud about is just kind of how everything is all fit into this perpetual organization entity. It makes it really easy for querying. And so even though there's all these different entities and it seems overwhelming, it makes it really intuitive to query. I mean, I guess that's about it for the demo here. So yeah, if you have any questions, let us know and we'll be happy to answer, or anything you want us to show off more.
Yeah, incredible presentation. And then also the build, that subgraph, beautiful subgraph, really, really great work, you two. Just to see you guys do that work on that stage was really, really fun to see for myself. And I could speak also for the other judges too. They were all impressed. So really good
Thanks.
work.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I have some questions for you guys about your build and kind of, where really, you guys want to go with this, because, before this hackathon, you've been conceptualizing POA for a while, it sounds like, and then Now you're like, well, okay, we've got an MVP. It has done well. It's getting some more eyes on it. What do you think are next steps for you guys?
Yeah, so I guess right now the short term main steps are just kind of fully fleshing out the feature set that's already built on the back end, having the POA bot itself be fully AI powered and be able to give good suggestions about different organizational features, aggregate that all and send it to the deployment script. And we do hope to kind of launch our public beta by like July 2024 is kind of the goal we have in mind now. And we hope just to have the core feature set we've already built, and it could be used for all types of organizations. One of the main things we really need to flush out is kind of the treasury aspect and how we want to manage that. Because since like the idea of the ecosystem is that it's fully community owned and like no one can buy votes, it makes it a little harder for these organizations to raise money. But we have some ideas in mind for how we want to do that. And one of those ideas is the Perpetual Fund. And with that, the idea would be it's a fund that's controlled by like the larger POA community, where the community chooses how the fund allocates money to different perpetual organizations that are in their startup stage. And we have a lot of different ideas for how we want to implement that, but we kind of need to nail down a good economic model that will work well for both the fund itself and then the perpetual organizations. And one thing we were thinking about kind of making a requirement for receiving funds from the Perpetual Fund was increasing that percentage of direct democracy you have in your hybrid voting, just so the community as a whole has a little more say in the decisions that organization itself is making. And so it's not giving the power to the investors or the donators to the Perpetual Fund, but it's giving more power to the community as a large, of anyone that wants to participate, even if they haven't, committed a bunch and collaborated a bunch with the organization itself. But long term, we kind of see this evolving into something that could be used for all types of open source software collectives, and make it really easy for people to recruit collaborators, because they can post those tasks in their task manager publicly. So even if you're not super involved with the particular organization, say your skill is like logo design, right? You could go to all the different perpetual organizations that have an open logo design bounty, do it for them, and your reward is a little voting power in the organization and potentially payout if that organization is able to generate some revenue that would be distributed among the participation token holders. And so, yeah, I guess that's what we have in the mind for the future. We're trying to build kind of a complete ecosystem where anyone can create an organization, be involved with an organization, do freelance work for an organization really easily. And it's all built to empower the workers in the community themselves.
That's
Something
awesome.
that I'd maybe love to add to that too is like when you say anyone can create an organization, like the goal is that means anyone can and not maybe just Web3 people or people who have wallets, etc. So obviously, like in terms of having it be owned by the community, there would definitely want to be some flexibility in terms of how much people can like abstract the wallet element away, because maybe like that looks different based on every single organization's needs and abilities, right? So definitely some element of abstraction is probably coming down the road, although the goal of that in mind just being more flexibility and greater accessibility, so that this is something that isn't just limited to a Web3 blockchain audience, but truly something that anyone can use.
Yeah, kind of a trend to be happening in Web3, that slow but sure abstraction away from the wallet pop-ups and from just having it just be, hey, this is what I want to do, and it just does it. And I really think that's a wise move. We have a question here in the chat. How did you come about learning subgraph development, and why did you pick the graph as your platform?
So I guess kind of how I got introduced to the graph was like probably about 4 years ago now. I was kind of like, I had known about Bitcoin and like a little about Ethereum, but I kind of really started diving more into it when like obviously prices started going up with everything. And, you know, I knew about Ethereum and smart contracts, and that was interesting to me. But I was like, okay, this seems to like not be a very complete ecosystem yet. And then somehow I stumbled upon the graph and saw that, you know, it's able to index the blockchain data and make it easily accessible to the front end in still a decentralized way. And I was like, wow, that just kind of, you know, completes the whole puzzle. And so I've been interested in the graph since then. I first started kind of learning about smart contract development in general over those next few years. But about, I think at the beginning of this year is when I first started developing subgraphs. And we actually did it for our our senior capstone project through our university, which is where we built like an attendance tracker that rewards students for attending classes with tokens. And then those tokens would be redeemable for coupons at local businesses. And so with that, I always wanted to, you know, do something with subgraphs, and I took that as an opportunity to. And right when I started, I found it to be like really intuitive, and it was like one of the first Web3 things I interacted with that just worked. Like there wasn't any weird errors, there wasn't any things I needed to reconfigure. All the tutorials online were great, and they really helped me out, and they made it super intuitive. And so developing that subgraph there led to me integrating a subgraph with our existing KU blockchain DAO. And then after that, come EthDenver, I felt ready to kind of take on a bigger task, and then built this.
That's great. I'm so impressed with your guys' ability to just start getting introduced to the ecosystem, and then like, hey, let's build an advanced subgraph, and really, you guys knocked it out of the park. Yes, a round of applause. I want to ask you about the college perspective of Web3 as a whole, and you guys are in school and finishing up, and I wanted to see what the mood is about Web3 as a whole, and see what they're thinking, and get your perspective on what professors are saying, because it's always interesting to hear what's going on at universities concerning blockchain technology.
Yeah, Emma, do you want to talk about that first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of new and exciting interest, kind of with the market and the way things are moving. We've had actually a lot of people at our university emailing and saying, you know, I've been familiar with blockchain, but now I hear there's a Bitcoin ETF, and it's like, okay, yeah, you know, whatever it takes to get people interested. So that's been kind of funny, but definitely, yeah, there is a lot of new interest, and this is something we've heard from like kind of other universities as well. That being said, blockchain is maybe still a bit niche, or that's at least the public perception in our university experience. And I think that maybe the biggest issue there is just like people don't understand how many greater applications there are besides just, you know, hearing about FTX and all of these things like that. So that's something we've been putting a lot of energy into, kind of doing a lot of education in that sense. We actually, like, our group is we're based in Kansas, and we're the only like blockchain educational organization that's locally focused in like a 300-mile radius. So we're starting kind of some new initiatives like in our local region to kind of
University
spread.
of Kansas. This is
University of Kansas.
Gotcha.
Yeah, spread some greater reach in blockchain education in the region. But we've been really, really fortunate to have some really supportive and credible professors who've been backing us for the last couple of years, and been really excited about things that we're building. And yeah, we've been able to, since the pandemic, kind of grow up our local community at KU from maybe like just a few members when we started in 2022. So now we have like 25 or 30 in our DAO, and a lot more greater interest in some of the events that we put on. So yeah, that maybe paints a bit of a picture. Is there anything you'd add to that, Hudson?
Yeah, I guess just reiterating what you said, there just still seems to be like a lot of skepticism, especially like from the computer science crowd. It's like they're educated enough to be familiar with blockchain, but not enough to be like have that in-depth knowledge to know that there's actual use cases. Basically, they know that Bitcoin's a thing and there's these monkey NFTs that people are crazy about, and that's really it. But when we show off use cases like this and we show off our DAO to people, it really clicks with them, and they're like, wow, okay, there's actual stuff that's cool about blockchain, and it's not just internet money and NFTs. And so that's been really cool to see. And then I think something else I would note is we've seen at least some interest from professors that aren't computer science professors, which I think is awesome. Like right now, at our university, there's an ongoing research project with, I think it's I forget exactly what department it's in, but they're studying putting biometric data on the blockchain in like a secure way. And so it's very kind of interdisciplinary, and that's been cool to see that, it's not just computer science people that are excited about blockchain now.
Yeah, I saw a few projects that are researching that. I'm not an expert on this one. I believe the phrase is a fully homomorphic encryption, and I talked with a gentleman about that almost a year ago, and that was just, there's so many cool projects in crypto and what crypto unlocks, not just, of course, monkeys on chain and you have money on chain. There's just so many different use cases that are just I would never think of, and I meet someone, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then this, with what you guys are building, it's already in the chat. We've seen one of our members, and I wouldn't say members, a participant in our protocol is highly involved and has been so for years. And he saw what you guys are building. Is like, hey, we could have used this. So, I mean, just having that type of creative potential across the board, I think is so unique in Web3. And I just want to just give you guys all the support I possibly can. If there's anything more unique graphs, I'm here for you guys, as well as this community. And then also, we also have DAOs here that I'm sure would be happy to just kind of chat with you and see what kind of problems that they might have run into. And it's always good to do, research with different DAOs that are, they know their problems. So I'm sure. Yeah. So just talking with them, I'm just sure we'd be happy to help you guys. Just want to see you guys be successful with whatever you guys are building. So, yeah, that's really cool. So,
Great.
If there's no more questions right now, I think time to wind it down. Thank you two so much for coming on to the Graph Builders office hours. This was super, super impressive. I'll let you guys have the floor at the end here. Yes, round of applause. I'll let you guys have the floor here. Where can anyone here reach out to you if they want to? I saw you had a QR code up there. So Twitter is the best, and then also any final last thoughts. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, on Twitter you could find me at HudsonHRH. I just sent it in the chat. That's kind of my username in most places. I think that's also my Telegram too. It's also my GitHub. And yeah, that either way is the best place to contact me or get in touch.
Yeah, and for me, I'm Mnasari on most things. I'll send that in the chat as well. I'm not incredibly active on Twitter, but I am on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. And then we had our Discord link up there as well, and in our link tree. Maybe we can resend that in the chat just in case anybody missed it. But we're starting to really get excited about building out our community. So definitely welcome all of you to join and just keep an eye on things if you're interested, and reach out anytime. And also just want to say again, what an honor it is to be able to share some of the work that we've done, and how grateful we are for the Graph community and for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming on. And thank you, everyone, for joining today on another episode of the Graphic Builders Office Hours. Take care, everyone.